Welcome to the France 24 debate. I'm Mark Owen. The fate of Muslims, women and the media are just three of the issues under the spotlight in India's regional elections. The state of Uttar Pradesh perhaps best sums up what's at stake. This election then taking place amid unprecedented concern about the rights of Muslims in India under Narendra Modi's hardline Hindu nationalist BJP party's rule. By the same measure, there's concern over the rights of women and fears about freedom of speech. With a media clampdown. Intimidation of journalists apparently is something that is now commonplace in India. Let's bring in our own correspondent, Navadita Kumari, who's in New Delhi. Navadita has been following the campaign and now joins us live. Navadita, great to see you. We've been appreciating your work, your analysis so far. Give us a sense then here in the debate about what the mood is in Uttar Pradesh and tell us what's at stake in this election.
Well, Uttar Pradesh has always been a hotbed for the Indian politics. And today it just concluded the first day of the 7 phases election. And it has always been a very important state in the Indian politics. It's a key role in the landmark of Indian political system. And many observers also call it a way to go to the New Delhi, that is to the Prime Minister's office. So very important for Indian politicians as well. And given the size of the state, it has 240 million people, a significant number of voters. So it also gives it a very important and, weightage in terms of the voters' percentage. The state has given 9 of its India's prime minister, including the present prime minister Narendra Modi, whose constituency is also in Uttar Pradesh in the city of Varanasi. It has always been also a stronghold of the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, and who has been accused quite often of flaring of communal sentiments in the state. Just in run-up to the elections, some of the politicians, including the Chief Minister of the state, Yogi Adityanath, said in a TV interview that this election is a fight between 80% versus 20%, and these numbers correspond to the ratio of the population of Hindus and Muslims. So clearly he has been trying to flare up divisive politics in the state. So overall also this state gives 80 lawmakers to parliament, and so everybody's eyes are on this big and humongous state, the Uttar Pradesh.
Indeed, humongous is a good word to describe it, really, isn't it, Navadita? Because the population of Uttar Pradesh is, as I understand it, and I know this because you told me, it's larger than that of Brazil, which is something to think about because
That's
obviously
correct.
This is one state within India. So we're talking like a massive number of people there. Tell us more.
So yeah, it's been always like it's a state where politics is super important, and it's like everyday discussion, what the politicians are saying and how they are framing the policies, and also important for the national lawmakers when they are looking at framing the policies at national level. I beg your pardon. And so in recent years, we have seen that presently the BJP has been ruling the state since 2017. If the present chief minister is going to win, then it will be his second term. And right after winning his first term, what he did in 2019, that he framed certain laws which observers have blamed of targeting minorities, particularly Muslims. For example, what he did in October 2019, he closed down 40% of 406 tanneries in the state of in the city of Kanpur, which is like the leather capital of India. And these businesses are particularly run by Muslims. And also in another policy attacking Muslims, what they did is framing an anti-conversion law. What they were saying that it is a way to protect Hindu girls from love jihad. Well, it's interesting they are using this term love jihad. It's a conspiracy theory used by these extremist Hindu groups of accusing Muslim men of converting women by marriage. So, and under this law in the past year, at least 200 Muslim men have been, many of them have been falsely accused and sent to jail. So it's, as you can see, the number of laws they have framed, and in the way of the speech, in the statements they make, they don't leave any chance of attacking this particular community, the Muslim community.
Now, Vidita, it's clear from what you're saying that there is a very, very distinct agenda which is being waged, and clearly there is a real sense that one part of society is being favoured and another is being discriminated against. Let's bring in our guests to explore this, explore the importance of this vote in Uttar Pradesh, as Navidita has just explained, and what it could mean for India going forward. We've got two guests for you. Joining us from Washington, D.C., Irfan Nuruddin, who's Senior Director of the Atlantic Council's South Asia Centre, Professor of Indian Politics in the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University, and a team member of Lokniti, which is a programme in comparative democracy in New Delhi in India. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And also joining us by Skype from New Delhi is Rajat Sethi, who's an advisor to the Chief Minister Manipur of the BJP, that's Narendra Modi's party. Rajat is currently the political advisor to the Chief Minister of Manipur and active in impacting politics in various northeastern states of India. Rajat Sethi, we're pleased to have you with us and to have someone to give us some kind of perspective on what has been said about the BJP and the importance of Uttar Pradesh. Rajat, I'd start with you if that's okay. Uttar Pradesh, how important is a good performance to Narendra Modi in this state? Give us a sense of what your party is saying.
Well, there are 5 states that are going into elections in India. And Uttar Pradesh is definitely the largest state by the sheer size of its population. Therefore, you might consider that this is important, but for the BJP, all the 5 state elections are equally important. BJP is in power in all of these states, barring one. So it is going to, fight these elections to win and come back in power in all of these 4 states that it is in power.
And in terms of how the campaign is being waged, how the campaign is going, would you say that everyone's getting a free and fair hearing so far in Uttar Pradesh and beyond?
Well, the democracy in India has seen, various litmus tests of stability, and over several decades it has matured. We've seen handing over power from one political party to the other in a pretty seamless manner, so much so that it is not even the case with very mature democracies like even the United States. Similarly, with UP, you've seen that the opposition has got fair space to conduct their polling, their campaigning. They're doing it aggressively. They're bringing out issues of the people, and so is BJP. The BJP is putting forth its own agenda. They've come out with their own development plan for the people of Uttar Pradesh and also for the other states. And it is going and reaching out to them based on the report card of the past 5 years. The amount of governance that they have given, the amount of development that they have brought to the state of Uttar Pradesh. They believe that they are confident to seek vote and support of the electorate based on the report card of these 5 years.
And equality, I take it on that issue. Staying with you, Rajat, still just to sort of set an agenda, and then we'll move on and debate it a bit more. In terms of equality, I take it you're defending your position. In terms of opportunities for other parts of society, I take it you're going to defend that position as well. In terms of the criticisms leveled against Narendra Modi, the BJP, and the way that India is run under Narendra Modi, I take it you're going to defend all that too.
I mean, that's a matter of fact. If I have to defend a fact, then yes.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that. For now, Rajat Sethi, advisor to the Chief Minister in Manipur, and from the BJP, the party of Narendra Modi. Let's bring in now for perhaps a different view, Irfan Nuruddin, who's from the Atlantic Council's South Asia Centre and member of Lokniti, the programme in comparative democracy based in New Delhi. Irfan, thanks for being with us. Your feelings as Uttar Pradesh is voting this important region in India. What is your sense of how important this is?
It's important for all the reasons that a democratic election in any country, in any state, in any country is important. It's the will of the people being represented. As Mr. Sethi correctly said, India's democracy has survived all sorts of tribulations and trials. It is a triumph of a poor country largely, and Uttar Pradesh is one of the poorest states in India, really showing that democracy, competitive multi-party democracy, can survive. Uttar Pradesh is 235 million people, give or take. That's 4 times the size of France as a whole. And it, regardless of what happens, the fact that the people will exercise their verdict makes it important. It takes on larger resonance because of the role of Uttar Pradesh in Indian politics. It sends 80 seats to the national parliament. It is very hard, if not impossible, to form a majority government in Delhi in a national election if you don't win the majority of seats in Uttar Pradesh in the national election. And so, to the extent that Uttar Pradesh really sends a strong verdict in favor of the incumbent BJP or in favor of the opposition parties, that will inevitably be read as something of a referendum on the Prime Minister's performance. Remember, as again Mr. Sethi correctly says, this is one of 5 states going to the polls over the next few weeks, all of which the results will be announced on March 10th. And so there is a sense in which 5 of the states of India's 28 states will be rendering a verdict. The BJP is the incumbent government in 4 of those 5 states, and so there'll be a lot of reading of the tea leaves over the year. Now, part of the context, of course, is that we are coming out of just an unprecedented challenge to India's economy, India's society, just as with the rest of the world. We are still traumatized by the images of last April and May's Delta wave in India, in which an untold number of people died. Those powerful images of dead bodies floating down the holy river, the Ganges, will never be forgotten by those of us who witnessed it and saw it. And so there is a question in some sense of if, in spite of all of that, in spite of the lack of success that the BJP government had to pass these significant farm bills, they were forced to withdraw them in the face of really unprecedented farmer protests across North India. If the BJP can still win a victory in Uttar Pradesh, that suggests to a lot of us that the BJP's hold on North Indian politics in particular, but maybe Indian politics more generally, is really secure. In the face of very significant headwinds, it still triumphs. On the other hand, if it loses, this might be interpreted as a real referendum on sort of dissatisfaction with the BJP government's handling of politics in the context of the pandemic and perhaps in the context of Uttar Pradesh. My one caution, which I imagine we'll get to talk about, is that Indian state elections are important in their own right, independent of the national elections. It is very tempting to want to draw inferences about national politics from the state level politics. But my analysis of this would suggest that this election will be determined on very hyper-local issues. Everyday citizens wanting to know what their politicians can do for them in their districts, in their neighborhoods, their homes. Those broader questions of secularism, media freedom, democracy, the larger economy are all important, and Indian voters are sophisticated enough to think about them. But at the end of the day, they don't vote for those issues. They vote for the politician that they think will make their lives better. And that's what we should be paying attention to.
Indeed. COVID-19, just to give people the update on that one, total death in India is over 500,000. Total cases, 42.7 million. Everybody, every country suffering in the pandemic, of course, and that makes the business of governing and the business, of course, living more difficult indeed. So, we salute everybody who's trying to make that work. And some decisions are taken, and some decisions are good, some decisions are bad. It's something that many governments have had to brace with. But just to stay with you, Irfan, for a little bit longer, Irfan Nuruddin from the Atlantic Council. You're saying that this isn't strictly then, as some people might see it, a kind of referendum on whether Narendra Modi is doing well. It's more governed on how people might see what he and his people at local level can do for them.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, that's been proven over and over again in Indian politics, and I would argue in politics in most parts of the world. There's sort of an adage in Indian politics that when politicians have to invoke issues of religion and caste, it is because the rest of the playbook is not as effective as they would like it to be. The BJP's plank over here is to use religious rhetoric, often in dog whistles, often coded language, as your reporter remarked Yogi Adityanath's comment about this is a fight between the 80 and the 20. No one paying attention to Indian politics can mistake that for anything other than an othering of Uttar Pradesh's significant Muslim population. 20% of 233 million people is 45 to 50 million Muslims in India. We're not talking about a small numerical minority. We're talking about 50 million human beings, that he's saying that this state election is a battle between the majority and them. But the truth of the matter is that there is no party representing Muslims in this. The reason he wants to make that comment is because his challenge is to bring on board lower caste Hindus, members of the lower caste groups in Uttar Pradesh, who traditionally have not been supporters of the BJP. The art of winning an election in Uttar Pradesh is stitching together a cross-caste Hindu coalition of voters. The major opposition party, the Samajwadi Party, ostensibly projects itself as representing those lower caste and Muslim interests against upper caste Hindus, which have traditionally been the redoubt of the BJP. So at the end of the day, this is not a politics or an election about two religious groups pitting against each other. It is about how do you get people who would not otherwise have voted for you, who don't see you as representing their interests, coming over to you. And what the BJP is betting on, not just in Uttar Pradesh, but around the country, and this has been Narendra Modi's playbook since 2002 when he came to power as chief minister in Gujarat, is that religious rhetoric, very divisive rhetoric, can bring together what they refer to as Hindu consolidation. And that not just undermines the rights of Muslims, it undermines the rights of lower caste Hindus and anyone who does not want India's politics to be defined in religious terms.
In terms of the 80-20 remark you made about Yogi Adityanath, in terms of what he said, and maybe we can show our viewers some images of this gentleman. Navadita, could you explain the significance of this man, the role he plays within Uttar Pradesh? Give us a bit more context on him.
Well, he's a preacher, basically a Hindu preacher belonging to a mutt, which is a religious seat of one particular, set of Hindu believers. And but he has risen to this platform, this power, because since the beginning of his political career, he has been making those remarks, like in the campaign for 2017 election, that was his first term. He said that if they are killing one Hindus, we are gonna kill 100 of them. So of course it's clear that he was targeting Muslims again here. So this person has always, Yogi Adityanath, he's incumbent right now. He has been specially picking up issues like that and responding to the previous speaker. I would like to say that it's not that they want to just, forget about the religious divide. They always want to drag it in. They don't want people to forget it. It's not of course, if they can get the votes of the lower caste, it will be very important for them. But they are not even trying to do that. BJP as well as Congress party has spoken about Brahmin, which is the upper caste, community in India. So they just want to retain their stronghold, and they don't even talk about the basic amenities or public infrastructure, or the most important thing for the youth today is employment. Our employment, country's employment rate has risen to 7%, which is the highest in 3 decades. So they're not talking about directly about these issues, how they are going to provide jobs, how they are going to, keep the economy going. The economy is in a very bad shape right now. They don't talk about the price rises. And in fact, while talking about their election manifesto a few days ago, like 2 days ago, they were again talking about love jihad. They were talking about that the people found, doing this love jihad will be given 10 years jail term and along with 100,000 rupees of fine. So they don't want people to forget that who their targets are. And yes, they are not a very, they don't want to include all the communities. They know who they have to speak to.
So Yogi Adityanath talking about this 80-20 split, talk about the love jihad. Let's bring in Rajat Sethi from the BJP, Narendra Modi's party. Rajat, it is clear, isn't it, that there is a real discrimination against Muslims in what we're hearing, and this is your party's policy.
Well, I'm not very surprised the way India's politics and India's democracy, a caricature version of it, is being presented in your studios.
Are you saying there's not a discrimination then?
Oh, 100% not.
There's no discrimination.
At the kind of benefits. Please allow me to finish my point and let me prove it to you. The amount of schemes that have been rolled out, the amount of cash transfers that have been given to farmers, and farmers can be both Hindus and Muslims, the kind of home-to-home delivery of piped water has not been done on religious lines. The amount of benefits that have been rolled out in terms of giving houses to individuals have been done on need basis, not on through religious lenses. I was touring Uttar Pradesh, and I can tell you so many Muslim families were pleasantly surprised because this caricature was even built in India in 2017, that these people never thought that BJP would give them houses. But what happened was that BJP's way of reaching out to the beneficiaries, distributing benefits to the society, has been agnostic of religion, has been agnostic of any kind of caste discrimination. And this is the reason why in Uttar Pradesh itself, election after election, 2017, 2019, 2014, all these elections, they have given an unprecedented amount of electoral mandate to the BJP to not just govern the state of Uttar Pradesh, but also govern the whole nation.
So they're the words.
Understand that.
Raja, can I stop you? Because I think you've made the point that in terms of the policy, in terms of the politics and how you're presenting it as a party, you're trying to be fair. And I think people will listen to what you're saying and maybe accept or not. And that's up to them, isn't it? Obviously. But can I just put to you what happened in Karnataka state? The issue there with the hijab, the headscarf in the schools. Now, I know it's at Uttar Pradesh, it's a different part of India, it's southern India. And it was quite disturbing what people saw there, and this is obviously a very current story. With the BJP backing the ban, passed a directive last week, and the party passed a directive saying, this is the quote from your party, clothes which disturb equality, integrity and public law and order should not be worn, which to most fair-minded people, I think, would read as a fairly racist statement against what Muslims wear. What do you say to that?
Well, you don't have to go as far as Karnataka. You can very much look into what's happening in France, for that matter of fact. Look at how hijab, not just in France, but the rest of Europe, has been considered against the core liberal principles.
Well, hijab is allowed in France, so that's not right. I mean, the hijab is allowed in France. There is discrimination in all countries. I'm not denying that. But the hijab's allowed.
No, what I'm trying to say... No, please allow me to finish. We look at several European countries. I can give you diktats that have been passed wherein hijabs are not allowed when the school uniform is being mandated by the school administration. Please understand, it's very easy to build caricatures, as I told you before.
It's not a caricature, sir. I'm actually quoting the words from your party. Clothes which disturb equality, integrity and public law and order.
To speak and present my thoughts. See, you have three people focusing on one side of the debate. Allow me the equal amount of time to at least express my point.
You've dominated the debate so far, sir.
So the schools haven't been built today, all right? The school uniforms and the school administration hasn't laid out these laws today. I mean, these rules, these regulations on school uniforms have been in place for decades. And suddenly one small issue wherein somebody, tries to disrupt the status quo of accepting what a school uniform is becomes such a big issue. This is what I fail to understand.
I hear what you're saying completely. But the way it was policed as well as raising questions, the way it was all done, it seemed that the Muslims were being victimized in that sense. May I pause you, and I will let you come back and reply in a moment. I need to bring the other guests in because you have had a lot of time and you deserve it because you've got things to say. Let's bring in Irfan Nuruddin from the Atlantic Council. You've heard what's been said. You've heard what I've been saying. Where do you stand on this? Is there an inbuilt prejudice against Muslims within Indian society? Is there a prejudice against women? The media, we'll move on to in a moment again, but obviously that issue too. Is the media under pressure?
Yeah, I mean, look, the state of affairs for any of who believe in a multicultural, multi-religious, liberal India, it's a depressing time. It's a depressing time for those of us who believe in those values in large parts of the world, but in India, definitely. There is deep religious tension. One might even go so far as to say bigotry that is rife in Indian society. The BJP does not have the monopoly on that. But it might be interesting to hear from our other guest how many of the seats and tickets that the BJP has given, how many of its candidates in these state elections in Uttar Pradesh or in the other states have been given to Muslims in the states. In 2019, when the BJP contested its national election, the sum total of BJP candidates who were Muslim was 0 for the largest party in the country. The outstanding mandate that they keep getting referred to in 2017, when the BJP won the majority of seats in parliament, it won a total of 39% of the votes in the election. In the national election, when the BJP won in 2019, again, a resounding majority of seats, but with about 40% of the votes. India is a very divided society. It's a very complicated society, but the issues of religious intolerance, of misogyny against women, and against a general illiberalism, or rather a general illiberalism when it comes to issues of the media, are pretty serious issues. They are existential issues for the constitutional fabric of the country. Bangalore and Karnataka is one of the most well-developed states in the country. It's seen as a tech capital of the country. It has become home to a particularly virulent strain of Hindu majoritarianism being espoused by societal organizations, civil society organizations, most of which are affiliated pretty closely with the BJP and with the BJP elected politicians as well. This is, to quote our guest, my colleague on this panel, fact. These are their own statements. They are proud of these statements, so I don't see why we should be trying to deny them now. They argue that this espouses what is truly Indian. So this notion of religious garb
put your question directly to
put in there.
Irfan, sorry to stop you. Put your question directly to Rajat Sethi of the BJP. Put it to him directly. Go on.
Mr. Sethi, how many of the seats and tickets that the BJP gave in for this election currently happening in UP have gone to Muslim candidates?
Rajat, over to you.
Well, we don't look at elections from religious lenses, and this is where I think our friends miss out on the larger point. We look at the winnability of candidates, and that is where the political party's principal sort of focus should be on. And I think one needs to keep in mind that there are other states also which are going into elections, which also have several minorities, by the way. And those minorities have been getting tickets where there is winnability of those candidates, irrespective of religious lenses. And this is where my problem is. Like, should the tickets be given only through a religious lens? That should the BJP perhaps look at, say, that this is the Muslim sort of an indicative list that they need to prepare to appease to a community? This kind of selective secularism that was being practiced for a very long period of time has been the reason why Muslims have been the poorest of the minority communities that exist in India, primarily because it consistently, year over year, political parties have been using them as vote banks, a consolidated vote banks, and not giving them back governance yields and governance benefits. That is the reason why they have been made so marginalized. They, education-wise, look at their educational levels. They've been suffering all out. I mean, if you look at Owaisi party, which is brandishing itself as the lone Muslim savior party, look at how many Hindu tickets have the Owaisi party given.
Rajat, may I pause you there and give Irfan a chance to maybe sort of reply to that. Irfan from the Atlantic Council. Go ahead, sir.
Right. I don't suggest that we need to have a set of seats, that there's no magic number of seats. I think it is striking. And again, I find it's, Mr. Sethi's response both has some very smart points in that. Muslims are the most marginalized parts of Indian society. Indian politicians and Indian politics' record across parties in the treatment of Muslims and of other minority groups in religious and other minority groups, whether it's Adivasis, the tribal populations, whether it's lower caste Hindus, is abysmal. There's plenty of blame to be shared. But we are talking about the dominant political force in Indian politics over the last decade. We're talking about governments that have been formed with resounding majorities in the national parliament and in the state politics. And I'm taking Mr. Sethi at his word that this is a party that takes equality as a fact, and find it striking that in a state with 50 million Muslims, the BJP has been unable to find a single viable Muslim candidate that it would be willing to give a ticket to. That strikes me as belying the claims made that there is not a religious lens through which the BJP views politics. But the larger point that he makes is right. India needs a reckoning with its record on minority politics. Old cliches about commitment to secularism are cliches unless they're acted upon by public policy. All states, all governments have much to do, but the BJP is the incumbent, and I think it is only appropriate, therefore, that we ask the hard questions of those in power at this moment in time. And Mr. Sethi, if we are still talking with each other in a decade when there's maybe another party, I hope I'm equally consistent at that point if they haven't done any better.
May I pause you both there, if you don't mind, just to sort of change tack a little bit. Thank you, both of you, for giving us the basically both sides of the story there. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that we have Navadita with us, Navadita Kumari, our correspondent, to just put the question to you, Navadita, about the plight of women, the situation of women in India. As a woman in India, how do you feel?
I think the major issue we women face in India is of safety, first of all, and also of discrimination. There is discrimination not just in the society, in my neighborhood, but also when you go to certain societies. There is certain kind of discrimination towards women because maybe there is prejudice. And also, if we talk about Delhi, which is has become urban area in the last few decades, and it has been expanding. It has the national capital region is with Noida and the satellite city of Gurgaon, which is like a commercial center. These places were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, were a rural setup, and when these people from these areas, they have been given money from the government to give their land to develop for the multinational companies to come and set up, but they are education-wise, they are still lacking behind. And then they saw that women have been coming into public places and they are working, shoulder to shoulder with men. They were not used to it. So this kind of the type of clothes I'm wearing, if I am going out or as a woman, I mean, if we go out for drinks and it is past midnight or something, then there is a question can I be safe? Can I go alone? Even in the capital of India, I will think, and I had to think about it. You have to keep your family informed where you are, your Uber or cab, taxi number. So the basic safety first, as a woman, we have to feel safe, and in terms of equal opportunity of work and education, and there are a lot of issues. Also, if you are from a particular caste, if you're a Dalit woman, then the problems can be multiplied by other factors. How the society sees your caste in which you are born or you belong to. So still, it is 21st century, but we are still struggling with these kinds of fundamental issues.
So that's comprehensively round up for me the situation facing most women in India. The figures, the statistics on rape are shocking. I think it's about 30,000 rapes a year. This is obviously women being raped by men, and often it's multiple men, and it's horrific stuff that we've covered in the news here in France 24 many times. Can I bring our man in from the BJP again, Rajat Sethi? Is this a sense that you're not succeeding on law and order, which is one of your key things, isn't it? You're a party that sort of has this agenda of law and order.
Well, I think even a single rape is a matter of shame, societal shame. And politics can address this issue to an extent. It also requires a broad societal level sort of understanding that what needs to be done in order to reduce rapes and ensure speedy justice to be delivered. It was after the horrific rape case that happened 10 years back in India, that a lot of rules and regulations have changed around it, and it has had a strong deterrence effect in India. In Uttar Pradesh, women's security used to be one of the principal reasons why the opposition, which is current opposition, which was in power back then, was ousted of power. Today, if you go out, you look at any of the opinion polls being conducted, any surveys which are being conducted in Uttar Pradesh, it is the women which are giving a significant amount of voting support or showing an indication to vote for the BJP because
Sorry,
of
you
better law
you
and
say
order.
you get a good slice of female votes. That's what you're saying, the BJP.
Definitely, and that's, I think, in my opinion, as a pollster, I can tell you it's this differential women vote which is going to see BJP come back into power in Uttar Pradesh. It is primarily because they fear that if the opposition comes in power, law and order is believed to go down, and it would be women who would have to suffer maximum brunt of it. And this is why 60-70% women are favoring BJP more than what an average should
Roger,
look like.
thank you very much indeed. Let me bring in Irfan for what's possibly the final statement in this debate. We've heard there about the plight of women. We've not got time to talk about freedom of the press, but that is a big issue with Reporters Without Borders really saying that there is a big problem in India. But in terms of what you feel, Irfan, in terms of what happens next to India, is the future good? Do you feel the future can be bright, or do you think there are problems if the political system doesn't change, if the political leadership doesn't change?
India's potential has got to be as high as any country in the world. We have a population of some 700 million people under the age of 30. The demographic dividend, as it's often referred to, is an engine of growth if it can be harnessed. And yet, India's education system and employment simply cannot absorb the demand of young people. In Uttar Pradesh and in other North Indian states, there have been violent protests and riots by young, disaffected youth protesting the lack of jobs. Their aspirations are high. Every Indian who wants one now has a smartphone. Data is virtually free. That data means that they can beam onto their smartphones images of the lives that you and I enjoy on a daily basis, and they ask themselves, well, how long do we have to wait, and when can that come?
Aspiring to get more.
That is a real problem.
Indeed. Irfan Nuruddin from the Atlantic Council South
People want
Asia
more. They
Centre.
want the life of it.
Indeed, they want the lives that everyone enjoys.
Thank
for
you.
instance, you and I in the West, as it were, those kind of opportunities. Sir, thank you
Indeed.
very much indeed. Irfan Nuruddin from the Atlantic Council. Thanks to Rajat Sethi from the BJP, speaking to us from New Delhi. Thank you, sir, for giving us your views, and thanks to our correspondent, Navadita Kumari, joining us also from Delhi. Before we go, we'd like to pay tribute to a true star of India. She was 92 years old, Lata Mangeshkar, when she passed away this week, one of the country's most popular singers, known as the Nightingale of India. We'll leave you with her doing what she loved best back in her prime. Thank you for joining us.